I just want to welcome everyone to our 10th anniversary webinar, Leveraging Leadership for Our Public Schools. My name is Rachael Tutwiler Fortune, and I'm proud to serve as the president of the Jacksonville Public Education Fund. As we celebrate our 10th anniversary, JPEF wanted an opportunity to connect with some of the philanthropists and community advocates who have long been a part of our work. Over the next half hour, I'll tell you about JPEF's strategic thinking on our next chapter and on the next chapter of public education in Duval County. And then I'll take some of your questions. Please feel free to share your questions and reactions via the chat feature of the Zoom video. My colleagues are standing by to help.
I want to start by taking a look back at where our public schools were 10 years ago when JPEF was founded. The Community Foundation for Northeast Florida convened a group to look at our public education system and found there was work to do. JPEF was founded as a high-capacity, independent public education fund who could be a data-informed, collected, and organized voice for education in our community, and connect community investments to strategic projects to help improve our public schools. JPEF's founding came in the context of 2 decades of policy reform as part of the education reform movement, which recognized our public schools were not performing adequately and equitably enough for all students. Here are some of the major events in this timeline: the expansion of school choice, funding shortfalls, and more rigorous learning standards have been all a part of our journey today.
Amidst this policy landscape, we have seen Duval County public schools significantly improve. Our graduation rate is the highest it's ever been, and our district has a B grade on the statewide accountability rating system. A national benchmark tool has identified Duval as a top urban district. And at the school level, we're seeing more schools that are A's and B's and fewer that are D's and F's. According to a report from TNTP, a national organization called The Opportunity Myth, 71% of students in their study were successful in their school assignments, yet only 17% of those students met grade level standards on assignments. Students need relevant, challenging coursework to prepare them to succeed in college and in the workforce. We also still face troubling gaps in achievement by race and income. This represents the opportunity gap, which we are focused on closing at JPEF. So given the context of this moment, we often hear, what do we need to do now as a community to ensure every student can attend a high-quality public school? If you read the news about education policy, you're likely to encounter 2 competing narratives answering this question. Many proponents of school choice believe that we should expand vouchers and increase the number of charter schools, which they often equate with high-quality schools. They may say that public schools are failing and these options are necessary to help families escape these schools. Many proponents of traditional public schools say these options are not necessarily high quality and they defund traditional public schools, when what we need the most is to ensure that we have resources for those schools to be successful. That's the narrative you hear in the media, but in reality, when we look at the 2 types of public schools where most of our students are enrolled, traditional and charter, we are in a both-and situation, not an either-or situation. Traditional and charter schools both play an important role in our public education system. The data shows that traditional and charter public schools, especially when considering variations in socioeconomic status of students, perform comparably here in Duval County. A massive new federal study found no measurable differences in student achievement in charter schools versus traditional public schools. And not all traditional public schools are failing, and not all charter schools are high quality. Rather, we see we have to do more work in both types of schools to help them improve, so that we can ensure that every family and every student has access to a high quality public school. JPEF's posture in this hybrid environment of choice is to support both types of schools proportionally to the number of students living in poverty. Students, where they go, is where we intend to provide the support that's needed. So our system will always include both types of public schools. Policy reforms have paved the way for the growth of charter schools, Charters bring something different to the system: innovation, autonomy. They can offer specialized programming, sometimes beyond what some of our traditional public schools can do. For instance, charter schools can and do sometimes extend the school day. They have flexibility, such as to recruit great teachers. And they may or may not provide transportation or lunches to students. They may or may not serve special needs students. Traditional public schools, especially neighborhood schools, are the most accessible option for families, including families who face challenges like homelessness, a lack of transportation, or aren't informed enough to help navigate a complex system to exercise school choice. They take all comers. So there's a role for both types of schools in our community. As we look at the issue of quality, we find that provider type does not equal school quality. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, the US Department of Education released a report showing no measurable difference between the achievement of students in traditional public schools and charter schools across the country. In Duval County, we again see variation in quality within both types of schools. The map provides some context to understand the relationship between school type and school grade. Here, lower income schools are in red, higher income neighborhoods are in green. Charter schools are represented by star symbols, while traditional public schools are represented by triangles. What we see is school grade is highly correlated with neighborhood income. Green schools are most often in green neighborhoods and vice versa. What we don't see is a strong correlation between school type, traditional or charter, and school grade. Rather, we see both types of schools receiving similar grades when located in the same neighborhood. The two call-out boxes on the map makes this case even easier to see. What it tells us is that socioeconomic status is a better predictor of school grade than operator type. High income neighborhoods correlate with higher grades regardless of provider type. Lower income neighborhoods often have lower school grades. Digging into the data even more, we can see a strong correlation between socioeconomic status of students and school grade. In non-Title I schools, more than 90% of schools are receiving A's or B's in Duval County. In Title I schools, that is public schools with the largest percentage of students considered lower income, about 60% of schools are receiving C's, D's, and F's. Title I and non-Title I is a much better frame than operator type to help us understand where we need to make strategic investments to move the needle in public education. Title I versus non-Title I is a more strategic way to invest in efforts to improve our schools. Students living in poverty face greater challenges in their lives and in their educational experience. Our schools must work harder to serve these students. It's harder to recruit and retain great teachers in high poverty schools. It's harder for students to focus when they face trauma and hunger at home. Poverty is the greatest barrier to a high quality education, so we believe we must focus in neighborhoods with high prevalence of poverty to help us move the needle in our next chapter. What we at JPEF believe is that school quality happens at the school level, not necessarily at the operator level. Operating a school for students living in poverty, is very hard work, and success varies depending on the actions of educators in the building. There are two additional reasons to focus on school choice from a provider neutral frame, meaning we work in both traditional and charter schools. Practically, we know success is possible even in the most challenging settings. Bright spots include the 3 schools listed here who achieved excellent grades this year, though their students face a number of challenges. St. Clair Evans, for example, was in the news because a stray bullet pierced the window of a classroom while students were in school this year, and nevertheless, they earned a B grade. When we know that it's at the school level that we can make a difference, it's easy to see that we must focus our efforts on working with the team of educators in the building led by a principal. So what is the job of a principal? The job of a principal is a lot like that of a CEO of a small business that happens to serve students. Consider a restaurant owner. The cost of ingredients may change, the minimum wage might change, and policies like the Affordable Care Act may change, but the restaurant owner ultimately has to respond to these conditions to deliver results, a quality product, and a satisfied customer. Similarly, principals have to respond to the education issues of the day in order to deliver great results for students in a highly time-pressured environment. There are 4 important roles of a school leader, all of which have a big impact on student achievement. Our principals are charged to recruit, develop, and retain great teachers, to foster a positive school climate and culture that makes a school a safe, desirable place for children to be, to engage families and communities in a supportive environment, and also to leverage excellent leadership and management skills, including the extent to which they're able to effectively manage the financial resources of the school. Here are 4 examples of evidence-based practices that principals can help implement at their schools. Coaching teachers to help them do their best work, greeting students daily to help them feel seen, safe, and ready to learn, connecting students to mentors, including through community partnerships, and effectively using data to improve performance across all aspects of higher school. These are not possible to implement at a district level or in Tallahassee. Rather, we have to work to ensure that that's what's happening in our schools through the support of our principals. I want to make a point explicit here about the importance of principals working with teachers. JPEF has focused on teachers for a very long time because we know they are so important to student success. Principals are the key people on the ground working with teachers, helping to keep them in the classroom and to be the best that they can be. And I'd love to share a brief story to help make this point. Stephanie Bellino was at the point of giving up on teaching in Duval County when her principal changed her mind. Principal Grover at Garden City Elementary School showed Stephanie the data on how much her students had improved during her class and convinced her to stay. The next year, she won Duval County Teacher of the Year. And you can see here in this quote what Stephanie had to say about this principal. Here's what the research shows about the importance of principals. Great principals are a key factor for student achievement, even more so when we consider their work with teachers. Research from the Learning Policy Institute shows nationwide that we have a problem retaining great principals in high poverty schools, and we need better preparation in order to support that. And as you saw from the policy environment, we have put more on the plates of principals without offering more support, without offering more resources and coaching. This is how JPEF landed on starting a school leadership initiative at this pivotal moment in Duval County. The School Leadership Initiative has 3 goals: to increase student learning gains by strengthening the quality of school leadership in economically challenged schools through 4 Founders Fellowships, to provide research on national best practices regarding principal effectiveness to develop strategic approaches with district leadership, and to engage business and community leaders to provide broad support to school leaders to address leadership challenges. The centerpiece of this work is the 4 Founders Fellowships. They're named in honor of some of JPEF's founders. JPEF is providing grants and coaching to school leaders in Title I elementary schools who are focused on projects in these 4 key areas: building and affirming school culture, and a positive one to support their vision for the school; creating effective, lasting teams with rigorous instruction; giving parents and caregivers a place and a voice in the school; being the leader who creates teacher and staff leaders. JPEF is working to bring best practices to principals in each of these 4 tracks. JPEF will also continue to play a role in informing the community about policy issues with a lens on how they affect the work of our public school principals. Here are 4 top policy issues that we're tracking. Our Duval County school buildings are in disrepair, as we heard this summer with the conversation about the sales tax referendum. After City Council didn't place the issue on the ballot, it's now back in the courts. We continue to face a teacher shortage in Duval County, across the state and the country. Safety issues also continue to be a concern, and the Florida standards are under review. This is an important initiative to ensure our students are getting rigorous, relevant instruction to prepare them for college and a career, and we are hopeful that the next standards will continue in this vein. Underpinning all these issues is the huge issue of resources. Florida is 26th in the nation for funding, which has an impact on all of these areas. And these are unfortunately sometimes and oftentimes actually in conflict and competition with each other when they all need better funding. Funding shortfalls have led to our facilities being in disrepair. Funding shortfalls have made it difficult to raise salaries for teachers. Research shortages have led us to consider options such as arming guardians and teachers instead of fully trained, sworn in school resource officers. And effective implementation of Florida standards requires resources for professional development, coaching, and standards aligned materials. Consistent with our strategic framework, JPEF will continue to engage other actors in the education system to improve public education. Our Eddie's Experience provides Teachers of the Year a year-long program of celebration, elevation, and empowerment through professional learning. And our Parents Who Lead program is building parent leaders who are civic leaders, tackling tough challenges in our city on behalf of our children. Our continued efforts will build on the solid foundation laid during JPEF's first decade as we deepen our focus on leadership for impact in our public schools that need the most support. This year, we're doing a pilot of our school leadership initiative. We're hosting 4 business leader principal luncheons. This summer, we'll have a summer residency for 30 Title I principals at the elementary level, and then 12 of those principals will be able to participate in our Founders Fellowships through beginning in school year 2020 and 2021. If you're not already actively involved, this is the moment we need you to join us in supporting public schools to close the opportunity gap and ensure excellent outcomes for all our students. I hope this provided some insight and helps you understand how we can make a difference as we begin a new decade of work. We're all here today because we know that having great public schools is paramount for the lives of our children. And the Jacksonville Public Education Fund is here to partner with you to help ensure that outcome. Thank you all for joining. Please let us know if you have any questions and we'll take those as well. Absolutely. We received a question about where the tax referendum issue stands. And I just wanted to reiterate to everyone that as a result of us not, or the school board and the city council not necessarily coming to consensus on that issue is in the courts at present. We're very hopeful at the Public Education Fund that we will be able to get to the point where the tax referendum is on the ballot, as we know that our schools are in disrepair and we really need to make sure we rectify that issue. If you'd like to learn more about JPEF's position on the tax referendum, we did issue a statement and that is available on our website. I see a question about the name of the federal study that came out recently that we referenced earlier in the PowerPoint presentation. And I just wanted to let everyone know that on September the 23rd, I believe it was, the U.S. Department of Education's National Center on Education Statistics did release the report. It was entitled School Choice in the United States 2019 about charters, private schools, and homeschooling. The report did conclude that there were no measurable differences in student achievement in charter schools versus traditional public schools. Please definitely be sure to take a look at that to learn more. So I see a question about initiatives in place for parents within the Title I schools. I will say that I know that in our community there are some programs that intend to support parents in effectively supporting their students in being successfully educated at our education system. For example, DCPS does have a parent academy, and I believe a lot of the programming that the parent academy offers does intend to make sure that parents feel successful in supporting their students, particularly those in our Title I schools. JPEF is excited to continue in its partnership with DCPS, the Jacksonville Public Library, Kids Hope Alliance, and a number of other partners, and also activating the leadership potential of our local parents to help them be civically involved and engaged, as there are a number of challenges that our community stands to address. Through our Parents Who Lead initiative, we were excited to see parents of students, including those attending Title I schools, tackling such issues as bullying, and the need for a crosswalk in front of First Coast High School, accessible learning environments and education for students with special needs, and a variety of other issues. So JPEF is definitely committed and excited to seeing the great progress we'll be able to make in partnership with our parents. Absolutely, and my colleague Coretta was also via the chat just reiterating that through our school leadership initiative, as we mentioned during the presentation, we will be looking to uncover partnership opportunities at the Title I schools that we'll be supporting in 2020, and with the family and community engagement area. We're actually partnering with one such school through our pilot version of the initiative this year and are excited to begin in that work. If you'd like to make a contribution to support the work of JPEF, there are many ways to do that. We have a page on our website through which we're able to accept contributions to support these efforts. And if you'd like to come to our office to learn more or send any support efforts to support our work to our office, we are located at 40 East Adams Street, Suite 110, downtown in the DuPont Center building. We received a question about standards changing for students again, and I wanted to let everyone know that the current status of the conversation about standards, basically there was an executive order made last year by the governor to encourage the commissioner, the education commissioner, to revisit the standards and to consider whether we needed to make any changes to the standards. At present, where that conversation stands is actually beginning this week, the commissioner's office just created opportunities for people to offer feedback on the standards revisions. And so we definitely want to encourage everyone to make your voices heard with regard to that issue. There will be listening sessions happening across the state of Florida. And we at JPEF will be happy to continue to share with you information about those that are nearest to Duval County, as the standards and assessments and curriculum that our students are being educated against is crucially important to the quality of the education they receive. So please make sure your voices are heard. As far as this current fiscal year, the standards that have been in place continue to be in place, and we look forward to learning more after the feedback process is concluded as far as what additional changes the state may be making. Well, I'd just like to thank you all so much again for taking the time to join us for this webinar. JPEF is proud to be your partner in this work to help improve our public schools in Duval County, and we look forward to your continued engagement and support as we look to move the needle for our students requiring the most support. Thank you for all you do.